go on.
Yeah, shall I drive?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so we forgot about the nice idea to like be driven by implementation. So I started implementing the server for reference library for SQL and FHIR, and it drives a lot of details we have to discuss. So I can quickly show what it is now, and then we can discuss what are the consequences of it, because there are a lot of questions we have to answer. Okay, so let me share. Do you see it?
Yep, I see it.
Can increase font a little bit like this. Yeah. So for now we have a server.js file in the core, and this is this kind of simple Express application. I started implementing the API. So the first of all, we get into capability statement and discovery. So here I like drafted that we have, like Graham recommended, we have like ViewDefinition resource type. It's against specification, but as Graham said, he is doing all the time, so we can do that. So using interactions, we can say, do we support creation of view definitions or not? At least I think we should support like listing, like search and read probably, to discover what our view definitions are on the server side. Then we have two operations. So the one operation is a real-time run operation and the asynchronous export. I implemented the run operation in a very naive way. So here is just how it's organized. So all the meta resources are served from folder metadata. So, and you see here the view definition, for example, which is a part of the server, it's just a file in a folder. And the server will serve all these canonical resources from these folders. So this is just a convention to be easy, but yeah. Okay, so what else? Let's jump to server back. So for example, here the view definition by ID, but this is going to be more generic operation with a resource type. And here's how so this is another part. I implemented the run operation. It's reading resource definition by ID. For now, it's working on an instance level, but I will implement type level as well. So I will tell these details later. So on an instance level, we can say run, we can provide format, and so in here we're getting FHIR data. For now, I'm just loading from S3 bucket, but probably we can put the sample data into static files. I'm not sure that I want to commit it to the repository. This is a just technical question we can probably discuss in the issues or on the Zulip. So I'm reading resource from meta folder. I'm applying our reference implementation. Yeah, and here I just start supporting formats, JSON, NDJSON, and CSV. So for example, I can show you how it works. Here I can query, for example, CSV, and I'm getting CSV. If I'm querying NDJSON using GQ, I see NDJSON, and I can query just JSON, and I see the array of JSONs. As well, yeah, it's easy to start this server. Just go to soft.js folder and say npm install npm run def. I will document it. So then the server is started. You can go to the browser. I don't know, can I increase? And get the metadata. Then you can get, okay, so you can call this run operation, or you can get all the view definitions, for example, like this. So yes, so that's it about the functionality which is implemented. I started with run because it's much simpler, so it's synchronous. And then later I will implement export operation. What else about implementation? And then we can jump to the questions. Yeah, so yeah, another piece, it's a test which you can run. We can go and say run test. And this is nice because if we just replace the URL, so we can create standard test for the servers. And we can run this test against implementations. So for now, it's quite simple. So it's just analyzing capability statement, and here will be like analysis that there's a view definition, and probably test will be based on capability statement. So if some capabilities are available, so then it will test it. If not, it will skip it. So in here, for example, I just listing view definition. I didn't yet implement it like run operation test and all this stuff. So this is a very basic test. As well, I'm gonna start like a reference implementation of the client for such type of server, and it again, so I think it will be very useful for the guys who is going to implement. Or we will probably this server will include some test page initially which can call different servers. Later we can join it with our sandbox, so we can switch between implementation when the people will create public installations of the engines runners. So you can switch between the servers and it will run. Okay, so yeah, so that's it. It was quite fruitful because while implementing there's a lot of questions rising which should be answered. So I start doing, for example, the operation definition stuff. Here's the operation definition for the run operation. And here's the parameters. So I start describing parameters with the FHIR, so we don't have to do this in Markdown. And I hope that this artifact will become probably the canonical we will publish with ours. So for now it's still living in metadata folder, but we will probably put it like into like FHIR canonical resources part of the specification and generate the page for it. But at least we should not like describe parameters in Markdown. We can start describing them in JSON. Here I just sketched. So for example, for the format, we have to decide what the value set gonna be. So I created the value set. I said extensible. So the value set for that is output format. And here I just created our code system, but we can look and maybe some existing code system for that. And here is the code system for different types of outputs. Yeah, so that's the scope. Yeah, and there's a lot of stuff to discuss and test again the implementation.
Cool. Yeah, looks like a really good start. Yeah.
Yeah, it's quite trivial. So like half code is written for me by Cursor. I'm not a big fan of JavaScript, but it works. So I'm just asking. And Cursor is quite nice in like writing FHIR resources. I really impressed. So it suggests a lot of like nice stuff. If I will remove Parquet and start, so he's like suggesting me Parquet, so it wasn't printed by me.
Yeah, it's impressive. Yeah, particularly some of these specialized tools that, there's a lot of data and content around. So I was exploring a couple of them. Yeah, impressive. Yeah. So cool. Yeah, good start for sure. Like we'll let everybody know and be aware of this work. Hopefully some people would also be interested in pitching in on this. I had one question. This isn't quite specific to the work, but like using a value set to encode the output format choices, is this like, has anybody else ever done that? I'm curious to know.
I hope so. At least the operation definition FHIR resource has this ability to bind value set.
So there was a thought to that pattern.
Yeah. And it's going to be extensible.
Somebody had thought about that pattern.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be extensible. There is some problem with the value set. Maybe we will switch it to sample, because if server just want to support, let's say, CSV or Parquet and nothing else, so then it will not be able to reuse our value set, which includes everything, like all codes. So we probably should say example, or maybe like consult to the other guys how it could be constrained. People will create profiles on operation definition, but it's probably too much. So, and constraining the set of formats. But at least maybe we can create the value set, or maybe put into this value set only formats we think that runners should support, like I don't know, CSV, JSON, or something like this. There's still a big question how we should output the data, because we can, for example, support like FHIR format as in the response body. It could be, for example, we can generate logical models for resulting flat view, or we can output it in a FHIR parameter way. There are two ways to make output FHIR friendly. I don't think this is worth for like bulk export, but maybe this could be like helpful for the run operation because like for the testing tools. So having at least one format, which, or maybe CSV and JSON, I don't know. So, but we somehow should like describe it. If we will make it like in the FHIR way, but like, okay, so if it's gonna be logical model, I don't think that like most of SDK do support it, but like I think most of SDK can consume FHIR parameters, because otherwise if it's just custom JSON, like some typed libraries like Happy and other stuff will not be able to process it. So this will create some border for like extending existing SDKs to work with that. Maybe FHIR parameters is a good option, like for at least for debugging. And
okay, I was
this
just
is just a few questions which are rising, but they're much more. And I suggest,
why don't we?
yeah,
we can get into those. It was a little bit of a tangent, but yeah, what are the main questions or list of questions that starting to pop into your mind as after implementing this, or beginning to implement?
Yeah, so the first, like, create all these canonical resources which describing API. It's like operation definition, probably these value sets. Then discussing output formats and input formats. And I started discussing with Dan in the Zulip chat, because current bulk export API, they just respond with the custom JSON. And again, this is another FHIR way, and then said that just FHIR parameter wasn't widely used at that moment. So probably like recommended way of passing parameter, if it's not like query string parameters, should be like FHIR parameters, and the response should be the FHIR parameters respond. Because what I see now in FHIR, for example, like match operation or the FHIR patch operations and all this stuff, they implemented through the parameters. So to be more like FHIR-like, I think we should use FHIR parameters for input parameters, output parameters, so that be much more friendly for SDKs. Because if we're talking about like bulk export clients, they are not non-FHIR, yeah, they very custom. But what I see that eventually it would be much nicer if we can like nicely integrate with the existing FHIR SDKs, not just very specific bulk export SDKs, but like existing FHIR SDKs. But we can do both. So we can potentially do both and just do like content negotiation to decide, do we like respond with a FHIR parameter or just a plain JSON without any schema and all this stuff. If we go FHIR way, yeah, we can describe all this stuff using profile and FHIR parameters and using operation definitions and all this stuff. So I see a lot of value in like going FHIR way.
Yeah, and I think you can imagine the evolution of those clients as well, right? Like it's those clients can evolve to support standard patterns better, right? So I mean, this is my gut feeling that, if there is a consensus pattern being formed, being implemented around parameters, it makes sense to at least start there. And then anything custom needs to earn its way in, right? And it may never earn its way in, right? There could be other solutions if people actually have this use case.
Yep.
So I think that's one. I think, the idea about parameters and the patterns choices around that. Now, what else?
Yeah, then we have to discuss for like what level of the operation, naming of the operation, because for example, there's a like type level, instance level. Do we want to support both? We have to discuss all these parameters. What's nice that we can start discussing this using like FHIR canonical resources. And yeah, so what are the parameters? Format, should we use headers instead of like parameters? That's that discussion which is already started by Steve, yes. We discussed I created two issues for that. For example, how to report progress, be the like custom header X progress. And there was another standard header like retry after. Headers are nice if you want to keep like body, like output anybody, yes, but probably like using body and FHIR resource parameters another option to do that. And it brings much more richer stuff, because like most of like HTTP SDK, they do provide very basic support for the parsing all these headers and all this stuff, and it's much easier just to parse body in the JSON format, like, or the FHIR parameters. So I created issue line suggesting like discussing such questions as issues on the GitHub repo. So we will have like keep tracking the history of the discussion. Yeah, so the RESP format for export during a sync, maybe we have to discuss like all these status codes we're responding. And I think when we will start implementing this in the reference implementation, we will get more questions how it may behave and what should be done. What I like about FHIR, because we can create again canonical resources for that, like parameter profiles, operation definitions, and most of these pages probably can be generated instead of like not like written manually. And then we open like this like discovery of the capabilities by program clients, yeah, so they can go to the server, request the operation, like read what the formats are supported, what the parameters are available, so like more better than just hard coding how it works.
More introspectable.
Yeah.
Or discoverable. Okay, cool. Yeah, great. Are those the two main questions or like classes of questions thus far?
Yeah, and then like we have to discuss like I think every parameter in details we want to support. Yeah, I don't know. First, I don't know. Are you okay with the export and run operations? I'm still not sure about export because we're slightly conflicting with the bulk export, but it will be scoped by ViewDefinition prefix. So maybe this conflict is not a big problem.
Do we want
Yeah,
to
I think
handle
that's.
that? Oh, sorry, John, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, I think that's fine. I think it gets, if you go back to the parameters, I think it gets a bit tricky once you start to try and implement some of these, so even since patient, so you've got to make some choices about how you do that. And so in order to do patient, you kind of need to know about the FHIR patient compartment, right? So
Or you can just
need,
filter by patient ID if you like in a naive implementation, yeah, but you probably will process too much data to do that, yeah.
well, if it means the same as what it means in the bulk export API, it basically means the compartment, right? And
Yeah.
also once we start to get into like multiple resource type scenarios, it's kind of about slicing the data to that which relates to the patient. So you have to go and find all the references that relate to, and I'm sure you've done this before, Nikolai, in terms of like aid box and all the rest. So how we do all that in the context of the reference implementation might be a bit interesting.
Yeah, in reference, because it's not optimized completely, so we can just filter out everything which is not belongs to this patient or the group. But I agree, so this may be not like a must, this may be like just recommended. So, and we inherited like patient in the group from bulk export, yes. So if we we'll decide that we don't want to support these parameters, I'm okay to throw it away. But this was just inheritance from these parameters were copied from bulk export. I don't know. Do we need?
I think patient is really necessary. I think it's something that is going to be necessary in the real world beyond like a sort of demo. So I think we should try and do it.
Yeah, I envision very like simple implementation, which under the hood calling bulk export and then processing this data from bulk export using view definitions. So in that terms, it will like the like processing patient parameter will be delegated to the underlying export operation, yeah, and the same about the group. So, but for like native platforms like Puzzlinks or 8box, for 8box that's probably not the big problem, but yeah, but like for the like bulk processing stuff, it may be the challenge. And again, so maybe we should like say how the runtime will say that it doesn't support this parameter.
Oh, yeah, actually, we implemented the patient compartment a while ago because we had to do it for some genomics authorization thing. So we've actually already got access to like a thing which basically creates a query from the patient compartment So I think they'll be okay, but that is an interesting idea of just delegating this stuff to the bulk export operation. But I guess I'm just kind of thinking about how to do it in this implementation. I was also thinking about since, like, so since, so this is effectively like technical version, right? So we want to return everything that has been created in the service since a particular instant, right? So I guess we need some sort of proxy or technical version in here.
Yeah, and I think the since was inherited from bulk export as well. So, but we can discuss like if it like more semantic in this. So then, yeah, this could be challenged. But again, so I'm just like implementing run operation. It's quite simple. So it's just like filtering on a stream. When we will start implementing export, I think we can like see the trade-offs.
Yeah, and the interesting thing about export, I think, will be like the multiple resource type stuff. So what's the current state of our draft API for the export in that respect?
We just started sketching it, so let me probably open the preview. Yeah, here is this is an expert. Yeah, this is an idea that like, but this is a very sketch. Yeah, so like you can provide patient all this stuff format. You can provide the view definition as a parameter, probably the list of view definitions. And through the parameters, we can specify other details like formats or something else.
Yeah, so we might have to add to our sort of definitional content there, like some examples of like not just individual view definitions, but also like a library with multiple view definitions in it, like view definitions that are meant to be used together.
Yeah, we can do the library, but then when we're adding library, there will be question, do we have extra parameters for the view definition, like format or the like one expert, one format? So this is a big question, yes. So should I specify one format for one expert? Maybe yes, maybe keep it simple. So you can run two experts with different formats if you want, yes. So probably the list of view definitions, yes. So then do we need parameters? If we don't need parameters, we can easily like create another parameter, which will be called like library and put the reference
You
to
already one there. I saw when you went past. Do you already have one called library?
Not yet, so.
Oh, I thought when you showed it up a minute ago.
Yeah, oh yeah, we just discussed this. So we asked Graham and the other guys, like CRMI guys, what the best option. They said the library is a good as a good container for the set of view definitions. But there was another idea like referring IG and say give me all the views from this IG. So, and I think when we will start implementing and playing with that, so we will have more opinion what are the best way. So like if we have IG, then we will delegate to the package system how it will be getting. Yes, the library is just a list of view definitions. We can refer view definition by, I don't know, even probably put the body of the view definition, but there's like too much variability and we should discuss how maybe like cut some ideas because like to keep it simple, yeah, because there are too many ways to provide view definition as a parameters to the export operation.
Yeah, I mean, like a good start would just be like an array of canonicals, right?
Yeah, that's like with the FHIR parameters, you can just like you can have multiple parameters with the same name, yeah.
Yeah.
And you see, suggest me something like this. So and we can like write profile. So there, we potentially have a I don't remember. It's called part, some extra parameters if we want.
And then if you specify like 2 or 3 view definitions, how does that come out in the result?
Yeah, it's described here. So yeah, so that's the result in the FHIR format. No, it's not FHIR format. It's kind of similar to what like custom JSON, but I think I crafted like behind the. So here's how it may look in the FHIR format. So let me close this part. So we say this is a result, status is ready, some message, here is the input parameters, here is the time of execution, like start and the duration, and here is the output parameter, which says, here's the like name of the, we can probably like create the URL. Yeah, URL is here, so, no, this is a URL to query results. This is a view was exported, yeah, so something like this. And we're free to add more output parameters. Or we can jump back to this custom JSON. Looks little prettier, but it's like people will have to implement it. So I slightly deviated from what the guy is doing in bulk export. So I created the view attribute to point to the specific view URL. Yeah, and the name could be here. You probably can say size and like if it's paged, so it can be responded with the different pages, like with the same view name. So you can like understand that output is like multiple files.
Okay.
But I really like, I don't like too much how the FHIR parameters looks like, but I understand like SDK, it will be like quite trivial for SDK to support it and for us to create a schema for the like profile for the FHIR parameters. And what's nice about parameters, they still open. So if your implementation want to add extra parameters, you can do this. Extra input, extra output parameters.
That's the part component here, the extra parameters. That's the meaning of part here.
Yeah, part is like nested parameters. So that means like output is a object which has a like extra keys, and you can treat these names as a keys, and then the value. Another nice stuff is a parameter that we can like reuse FHIR data types, like references, URLs, like an integer. So it's a little bit more clear semantic.
Okay. Interesting. Oh, okay. It's making it, yeah. Now I'm understanding, I think, a little better. Okay. Yeah. Well,
I would like to implement like naive export and then like in a reference library, and then you can join and we can discuss how it may work, like output stuff. And I will implement like reference client for this stuff, which will be used in the tests and will be good template for the other clients.
Okay. So I'll note that down. I think I'm just thinking process-wise, because if the group has to look at each operation and then each parameter at the operation, just how we want to go about doing that, maybe it's premature at this stage, but once you've developed the export operation, at least a naive implementation, and then the reference client for that, then I think, what worked pretty well, I thought last time around when we had essentially like this review matrix, right?
Yeah.
We'd call out people and we'd say, have you reviewed X, Y, and Z? Because otherwise we would have to do it as like individual GitHub. I mean, maybe we still have individual GitHub tickets for discussion or something like that. But I'm just thinking in terms of process, how we want, because we'll need, the core group or group of reviewers to like track how they are doing in the review. So does that feel like the right approach?
Yeah, I think we will just extend what we have with the matrix and with the tests, because after the reference client, we'll expose the runners and put into our implementation. We can create extra attribute with the like URL of the test server, public runner server. So then, yeah, so we can connect from the sandbox to this server. We can like run the test against this server. And for now, not like internally, but even outside. Yes, so that we can run reference client against specific runner API. We just for these runners, we just have to agree on the data set which is loaded. Yes, so that so we can compare some kind of responses.
Right. Yeah, I'm thinking. I mean, that I think also makes sense, if we have the test client and have like the sandbox, but it's sort of dynamically produced, right, in some sense, instead of statically produced like we have today. I think that could be, I think we can do either, but it might be more, I mean, yeah, I think we'll have to decide whether it makes sense, because I mean, we'll see what the interest is. I'm sure people will be interested in implementing, but like what that,
but that's common.
How quickly
that's common practice in FHIR. Yes, so you have a list of publicly available FHIR servers. We may have a list of publicly available like ViewDefinition runners. And then we can do what like Brian is doing with the FHIR pass. Maybe even Brian can do like we will do, like distributed systems. He like for now he hard code all this implementation inside, but we can connect from the client to outside running ViewDefinition runner. And like for me, the milestone will be, so we do have this ViewDefinition builder. Whenever people will start exposing their servers, we will be able to connect the ViewDefinition builder not to only 8-box stuff, but to the other implementation as well. So then people will be able to like have a like select to choose the implementation.
Like push the view that view definition that they built and say, go here, try it out. That's really cool. Yeah, that'd be awesome. And that's like next level from what we have today. I know other people have similar things, but like next level from what we have today. Okay, yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that's a great way forward and will be very powerful. And I think that, yeah, both, I think we'll continue to go on that road. And then, yeah, once you have more work produced for export and the reference implementation or the reference client, then I think that'll be a good step to say like, okay, like here's what we have today. Now let's kick off a review cycle, right, with folks and getting folks involved. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, and if you guys want to join me, like I know Steve is working on implementation, yes, and that could be very nice if, for example, you will start working on this API. We can reference client against your implementation.
Yeah,
we'll kick off eventually work on 8-box side. So yeah, maybe John. Yeah, Steve, can you like say how far you are with your implementation?
Yeah, we have a implementation that sort of built off the export operation, but we're happy to rework it to aim towards this. So we could do that really at any time. That's actually the best way to review these ideas and documents and style anyway. So we're working on a few projects at the moment, but I don't know what the timeline for wanting to do this is, but we could we could start to queue this up soon to do this. Nikolai, I did have a question on the very first topic, the capability statement. So I saw the comment, I think it was Graham put in the Zulip chat about it's now sort of okay to put these put logical models as first in a capability statement as a FHIR resource, right? Mm-hmm. Is that how you guys are doing it too? Are you so? And we did exactly that because they sort of behave like a resource. But I remember we had to do something with. I think we had to add, or we had to massage it a little bit. We had to change the structure definition such that it behaved more like a first order. Is that the path that you guys are going down as well?
Yeah, if you're talking about 8-box, we're doing since the beginning because we do support custom resource. Like we have a user resource, access policy resource, and yeah, we just put it into. So I don't know. I'm not aware that some clients are very strict about validating capability. So if they don't recognize the resource, they fail. So I think for example, our implementation working against Happy and all this guys. So I think it's okay. So this is like people doing this de facto, and I think this is a good way to do the discovery. And I see that we need a lot of discovery because different engine will support different capabilities of what can be done, like dynamic views, like static views, output formats, and we have to like work on how the client can discover what features are supported and mapping that to the file, like to the value sets, to the listing of view definitions and all this stuff, because otherwise everybody will do like different stuff and then we go.
Especially in operations, it's always been a sort of a scratch your head experience as much as they're defined in operation definitions, but they're not always, because that's an area of tooling that's hard to, you can define the interface, but everything beyond the interface is hard to do.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think will show the value of having a reference client, right? Pretty clearly, because there's a lot of optionality or more optionality than typical. So yeah, I think it'll be really valuable.
Yeah, we will definitely I think like View Builder is going to be like second reference client, because it will try to do this discovery and show all the possible options to the user. So what are formats you can request? What are like view definition? Is it dynamic or just statics? One which already hard coded. So you can just run only this. And what other parameters are supported?
Yeah, the idea that I had was slightly different to that. It was to create like this sort of patient cohort builder type application, but instead of being able to point it to different backends, it would actually like demonstrate that you could farm the same query out to all the different backends and actually put the results together into like a sort of concatenated sort of data set to sort of demonstrate that you can sort of run a standard query against multiple different data sources and sort of aggregate that. And sort of in the first instance, you just want to like do like a feasibility. So you want to say, okay, given my filters, how many records exist in all these different places? And then, okay, now that I've figured out that I've got enough records in all these different places, now I want to go ahead and get these columns from all of them and bring it back as kind of some sort of harmonized data set. And I wanted to do that because we've sort of worked in the past with people who are doing exactly this, and I think this is like the perfect use case for SQL on FHIR.
Yeah, and it complements very well. So this like multi-channel client, which is like using distributed.
Yeah, it's interesting. John, or I guess Nikolai and John, does the current API support that type of use case to to reach out to many different servers essentially and just get accounts? I'm not, it's not ringing a bell to me, but is that,
So
you
you
know, is
can
that
get
an easy
count.
use case to
You
do?
can get count through the FHIR search API, but yeah, I think if the standard way, so that's when we introduce
Oh,
query resource, you can like send query count.
I know. This is query resource stuff. I'm just thinking like, okay, so the discovery phase would be a client talking to many different servers through the FHIR search API, right? Just so I understand. So it would likely be more like that. And then once it processes that response, then it would make a query across the, you know, the SQL and FHIR API. Is that what you were kind of thinking of, John?
Actually, no. I was
Okay.
actually thinking, I think that the result, the shape of the result that we've got for our export API is already fine. I think that there's maybe a parameter in the request which is like count only, where instead of returning like the files and everything, it just returns the counts for each of the items. And then you could kind of run it in a count only mode or like a full.
Dry run, yeah.
Yeah. The problem with the search API thing is that then you've got to implement the whole search API and you've also got to have it work in exactly the same way as like the view runner and all that sort of thing, which is not impossible, but I think it's probably simpler to have a couple of different sort of modes of operation for the export.
Yeah, we will definitely have more parameters because like something like dry run to estimate the like number of results. Yes, so maybe in our case, if we are not like really exporting but creating tables, we will probably need some extra parameters to say like, I don't know, database schema to export these views. Yes, or something like this. And we discussed it. So the hardest in the future when we will start talking about like synchronizing these views, like in these exports, just like getting updates and all this stuff. This is going to be really hard because like export once is okay, but you like usually you need to update all these views, and this is still a big challenge for us to design. It's like not even real time, but at least updatable views, yes, or something like this.
Okay. Yeah, I think I like the idea that there are more options through the API to support something like a dry run, because I could imagine clients that, I mean, maybe this is a little far-fetched, I don't know, but it does feel like it because these operations are quite expensive and can be very expensive and long running. And so having some, like otherwise, let's say the client doesn't know very much about the scale of the data on the server side. it'd be really nice for that client to be able to interrogate that before executing the full operation. And then it's like, okay, well, how long is this going to take? Oh, 3 days,
Yeah,
right?
it's gonna be something like estimate parameter. Yes, so please estimate
Mhm.
me time and the space I need to run this operation.
Yeah, it potentially doesn't have to be that sophisticated. Depends on server capabilities and stuff. This really gets back to the data layer, right? And its scalability and things like that. I mean, these are hard questions, but some first pass estimate of that would be, I think, pretty valuable, particularly if we're thinking about the use cases that these distributed use cases that John is thinking about.
Yeah, so like, yeah, I'm not sure how you do the estimates. I think it's possible, and things like BigQuery do this sort of stuff. We had thought about like this concept of a pre-flight. So we'd thought about the concept of like pre-flight and account. So the
Mhm.
pre-flight would be slightly different, where it would be like, here is this view definition, this query. Can you do it based on the capabilities of your server and my permissions as a user, etc., etc.? Yes or no, can you do it? And go through and sort of parse the query and figure out whether that's all possible, but don't actually run the query yet. And the other one is like, okay, go ahead and run the query, but don't give me the results, just give me the record counts. And then there's like, actually execute the entire query and put it into files and let me download it and all the rest of it. And it might be useful to actually have those different levels so that, you know, clients can actually work out what they want to do before they actually do it.
And John, I have this section use cases in API. So if you're keeping in mind very like specific use case for that, so if you can describe that, would be nice. This will fit our design of API. Yes, so if you can describe this when people need pre-flight or something like this, what the real situation, and then we can like keep this use case in the focus when we designing. So because I
Yeah.
created this like complete black box operation which is doing like everything up to queries and like keeping it up to date. Yeah, so you're just saying server, please keep these views up to date and run these queries. Yeah. So and then it's up to server how it's implemented. And I think we can create on the different levels. And I clearly understand with this like this analytics and all this bulk stuff, there's a bunch of technical details like pre-flights, like capacity planning, all this stuff like time planning, updates. And if we will have like use case description or the like workflow description, so then we can try to match it with the API design. And Steve, are you
Yeah.
working on some kind of bulk export, or it's going to be like real or near real time updating?
No, it'll be a bulk export. Yeah. Most of the projects that we get involved in, they tend to be point in time. There are some CDS hooked style projects that are more up to date. So we do something totally different for them, but we should probably support both actually, if you think about it. Yeah.
But for now, it's mostly like batch stuff, yeah. Like
Most of it's batch. I mean, the vast majority of the the data analytics community, they have like this very batch mindset, and they want to analyze. They want to get a pile of data and then analyze that data. We want to do all the cool stuff, like all the real time CDS hooks, immediate interaction stuff. But the mindset is different.
Do they ever want to keep that pile of data in up to date? Like, maybe run it every night, but use since parameter and like add it on to what they've got or merge it in.
They tend to like do it every month or every quarter or something, and then just do comparisons from there. You would think that, but only because it's such a pain in the neck to keep that stuff like continuously up to date. It's a very batch way of thinking.
Yeah, I mean, we'll certainly be implementing like bulk export API and this. So like not kind of one or the other. And like as we were talking about before, like there's ways that you can potentially reuse the functionality from both, right?
Yep.
In your implementation. And there's also ways to sort of, have SQL and FHIR on top of bulk export API and that sort of thing. So I definitely think there's value in integrating with the existing implementations that, have already implemented bulk export API.
Sure.
Yeah, I think I mean, it's definitely a implementation style or model that is going to be really important, right, for us. And so, I mean, I don't know if we necessarily need to call that out explicitly, but yeah, it'd be good if people at least were aware of that line of thinking, because people might be looking at this and saying like, oh no, here's this other API we have to, you know, we have to implement, or we don't have to implement, but, you know, and if they could understand the idea that a lot of the work already done for the bulk API could be leveraged in a pretty direct way. And there's not a hierarchy necessarily, but like a model that shows this. I think that would be nice. It just reduces the kind of, I think, initial hesitation. And like anytime we can reduce the costs of implementation, even if it's an
Yeah, I would
idea.
treat it as a like low-hanging fruit. Yes, if people having like bulk experts, so we can start using it right now. But what I believe that like what I see from like all batch system eventually want to be like real time or near real time system, because the closer you're getting, so people want like answer it right now, not just waiting for the night or the week or something like this. There are
Yeah,
definitely
yeah,
different use cases, and we probably have to describe these use cases. What I see in a good IG, they start from the use cases. Yes, so we can describe like bulk export use cases and like some bulk operation, like I don't know, I'm expert in claims and analyzing like every week or like nightly, maybe like passion-based stuff, which can be kind of easily done, even real time. Yes, so when you're doing like everything, converting to the on fly, converting to the tables and then querying them. So for CDS hooks, which are like based for the patient, may work quite well.
well, we're at time, but Gino, sorry, you're coming in right at the end.
Yeah, time zones are perfect.
Eastern time, I always specify it's in Eastern time.
Yep.
So
You did. That's not
but,
unusual.
Maybe
But,
so we have a like Google Calendar event. Maybe I can add Eugene, or it was created by John. Yeah, the last
Oh
event.
yeah, is Gino not on that? I'll add him.
Can you add Gina to this like one source of truth for the calendar? Because that saved me Gina as well today, because I was pretty sure it will start like hour late.
Yeah, with all the daylight savings and everything going on, that doesn't do anyone any favors.
Yeah.
I don't really have that excuse since I'm on US Central, but
But we can stay like 15 minutes and discuss SDK generator. We close to announce the our one FHIR schema type schema based.
all good. Yeah, I'm almost to the point for the cross version to start showing that, and part of that is I've built a database schema that loads all of the types, and that's part of the problem. I keep finding more bugs in the early definitions that I'm exposing, so I'm almost done reconciling all of that, and so then we'll have a database that has 2 through 5 so far, all the value sets, structures, types, the comparisons, mappings, the concept mappings, all that. So
yeah, there's a lot of mess.
yeah, I normalize all of it on the way in, but it's just nice because loading all the stuff from structures takes a while. Loading the database takes nothing.
Wait for view definition. We will add you more stuff to code.
I actually tried to start doing this from view definitions, but there were a lot of columns that I'm inserting random things from, and I didn't want to write all the FHIR path for it. So I said, well, I'll do it this way first and then swap it over to view definitions after. So yeah, fun stuff.
Okay, let me stop the recording.